Alright, so today we're going to continue what we did yesterday, solving equations, but we're actually going to continue with the solving. So yesterday we only went up to steps 1 through 3. Today we're going to actually do steps 4 and 5. So you can write all these down. If you need to pause the video, then go ahead. Otherwise, we're going to start with problem number 1. Alright, so first you're going to look at all your denominators. We have 3x and 1. Find your LCD first. So 3 and 1 both go into 3, and you need an x there. So now I'm going to rewrite my fractions, leaving a little bit of space in between so that I have room to multiply by my LCD. All right, I'm going to write 3x over 1, 3x over 1, and 3x over 1. So that's multiplying each thing by the LCD. Now I'm going to cancel my common factors. So notice that I have a 3 that can cancel out. I'm left with 10x over 1, which is just 10x. Here my x's cancel, so I'm left with 12 over 1, which is just 12. And over here nothing cancels, I have 6x over 1, which is just 6x. Alright, so now I'm going to solve for x. This is where we stopped yesterday. Now we're going to continue. So you know how to solve an equation. Just get x by itself, subtract 6x. You get 4x equals 12, and then divide both sides by 4. So you get x equals 3. So there's your final answer. Just check for extraneous solutions. Make sure that if you put x in the denominator here, that it doesn't make a denominator of 0. So your domain here would be x cannot equal 0, but this answer is okay. So that's good. All right, next problem. Look for your LCD. I've got 4, and I've got x. Now you don't have to do 4 times 4 to be 16. You just do 4 because they're both the same. All right, so I'm going to rewrite my equation. And my LCD is 4x. So I'm going to write that next to each one. All right, then I'm going to cancel my common factors. So x's cancel out. I'm left with 24 over 1, which is just 24. Here my 4's cancel, so I'm left with 5x over 1, which is just 5x. Here I'm left with 4's cancel out, so I'm left with negative 7x over 1, which is just negative 7x. Once you have no fractions, now you're just going to solve. So I'm going to subtract 5x. I'm left with 24 equals negative 12x. Then if I divide both sides by negative 12, I get negative 2. So that's my solution. I'm just going to double check that if I were to put negative 2 down here, it doesn't make my denominator 0. So I'm good. Okay, so we're going to keep going to the next few problems. We got 4 more on the other side. All right, so again, you're going to start with your LCD. So if you want to see your steps, we'll leave it up there. All right, your LCD is 3x. Here your LCD is 6 times the quantity x minus 1, because that's a binomial. All right, so I'm just going to rewrite, leaving myself a little bit of space. So I put 3x over 1, 3x over 1. All right, and then I'm going to look for common factors. Cancel out my x's. I'm left with 3 times the quantity x plus 2. Here I cancel out my 3's. I'm left with 2x over 1, which is just 2x. So now I'm going to solve for x. I'm just going to distribute 3x plus 6 equals 2x. Then you guys should know how to solve from here. So if I subtract 3x, I'm left with 6 equals negative x. Divide by negative 1. I have negative 6 equals x. All right, so again, just double check. If I put negative 6 in the denominator, it doesn't make it 0, so I'm good. All right, this next one, I've got 6 times x minus 1. That's my LCD. All right, I'm just going to copy my problem down, x minus 2 over 6, x minus 2 over x minus 1. All right, so look for common factors. 6's cancel. I'm left with x minus 1 times x minus 2. Here my x minus 1's cancel. So now when you solve, you need to look at, here you need to FOIL. So you got x squared minus 2x minus 1x plus 2. Here you need to distribute. Okay, so if you FOIL and add together common terms, you get x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 6x minus 12. So now in this problem, notice that I do have x squared in it, so I'm going to get everything on one side, and then I'm going to use a quad. So you want it to equal 0. I'm left with 14, negative 9x, and x squared. If you want to, you could factor, but instead I'm just going to use my A-quad program, because I think that would be the fastest way to do the problem. A is 1, B is negative 9, and C is 14. So my answers are x equals 7 and x equals 2. Okay, now double check. Does this make your denominator equal to 0? 7 minus 1 is 6, that's okay. 2 minus 1 is 1, that's okay. So these both work. All right, last two problems. So look for your denominators. Find your LCD. It's 1x, right, which is just x. So you could say x over 1 minus 18 over x equals 3 over 1. I'm just going to cross off the x. We don't need that. So my LCD is x. I'm going to multiply each one by x over 1. All right, so nothing cancels. I'm left with x squared over 1, which is just x squared. I'm left with 18 over 1, which is just 18. And here nothing cancels, so I'm left with 3x over 1, which is 3x. Since I have x squared, I need to move everything to one side. So I have x squared minus 3x minus 18 equals 0. And then again, I'm going to use my A-quad program. So if I do that, I'm just going to start over. A is 1, B is negative 3, and C is negative 18. So my answers are x equals 6 and x equals negative 3. All right, so now double check. 6, that's okay. Negative 3, that's okay. All right, last problem. My LCD is 6 for sure. Notice these are the same, so I don't only need to write it one time. So I've got 1 over x minus 1 equals x over x minus 1 and x over 6. So my LCD is 6 times x minus 1, 6 times x minus 1, and 6 times x minus 1. All right, so remember, each time you want to find a common factor that cancels. So I'm left with 6. Actually, the 1's cancel too. Here, my x minus 1's cancel. I'm left with 6x over 1, which is just 6x. And here, my 6's cancel. So I'm left with x minus 1 times x. So notice over here, you're going to have to distribute. So I have x squared minus 1x. I have my 6x, my equals, my 6. So notice I have x squared. I'm going to move everything to one side. I have x squared. These add up to be plus 5x. And I'm going to move my negative 6 over. So I have x squared plus 5x minus 6. All right, and then the last thing I'm going to do is do A-quad again. So A is 1, B is 5, and C is negative 6. So I get x to be 1 and negative 6. Now, if you go back and double check, if I put in 1 here, 1 minus 1 gives me 0. So this is actually extraneous. All right, negative 6 minus 1 is negative 7. So as long as it gives me anything other than 0, it's okay. If it gives me 0, we're going to call it extraneous. This would probably be like an extra credit type of question on a quiz or a test. So.